All right, there's a resource section in the back of your book on page 191. You will see some resources. On page 192, there's some really good resources there, including, told you about Rent-A-Meter. Escrow services, escrowserve.com is if you want somebody to collect your payments for you and make your underlying payment. And they'll send you a 1099 at the end of the year. They'll send both for one buyer and seller. They'll deposit the difference in whatever account they're directed to. Insurance for landlords, you should call Chuck Juergens. His phone number's right there on 192. And this is assuming that the property is non-owner occupied, because if it is, you won't find cheaper insurance than you'll get from Chuck. Anywhere in the United States, this guy saves me about 50% on insurance premiums. About 50%. And credit repair, use screenthetenant.com so Paul will know you came through me. These are the states that recognize tenants by the entirety. And you'll note at the top, they recognize it for all uses. At the bottom, they recognize it for real estate only. So if you live in one of those top states, count your blessings, assuming you're married. Tenants by the entirety will only apply if you're married, but it is one of the safest ways for you to own everything you own, tenants by the entirety. It is predator proof as long as a judgment is not against both parties. Tenants by the entirety simply means husband and wife own this thing 100% undivided interest. And because it's undivided, a creditor can't take a percentage of that thing that one of them owns. Pretty darn safe. That means you won't own the property, husband and wife tenants by the entirety, but they will own the land trust, tenants by entirety, or they'll own the LLC, in fact both, tenants by the entirety. Next page, you'll find your Pat Live information and how to contact them and what they cost are, followed by an application on the following page. The next page, you'll see a consulting agreement where you can consult with me if you have the need. I am $12,500 for a half a day, $25,000 for a full day. I do approximately 1 to 2 of those every single month in my office. People who come in to do that understand why and why it's so cheap by the time they leave. I have built businesses in that consulting day. You do not want to consult with me unless you feel like you are ready to grow and grow quickly, but on multiple subjects, including information marketing, and or speaking or promoting or real estate. All right, let's do a recap. And if you want to take pictures of this, you're certainly welcome to with your gadgets. And I know there's some questions that I didn't get to, but I just am not going to be able to now. So let's go through this. And here we go. Let's start with buying. Okay. This is the things you got to do if you want to be in this business. All right, number one, we got to locate prospects. How are we going to do that? How do we learn to do that in this class? Yellow letters if we want to. FSBO signs. VA calling online ads. Ads you run, not bandit signs. I don't want you guys to put bandit signs out that say you buy houses, because A, it's illegal, and you're going to get calls from the city, and B, you don't need to. That's an awful lot of work. You don't need it. Now we used to. Okay, and they work, but you don't need them. So, did you get that? Where are all the calls going? Pat Live. So in order to get set up, we got to activate Pat Live, give them the yellow letter script, all you got to tell them, check to make sure they got it right, and you're ready to go. That's step one. Now, step two, I got to get a VA, or I got nobody to call all the leads after Pat Live takes them. And of course, you got to ask yourself, okay, if I don't get a VA, who's going to do it? And if you don't have an answer, how far are you going to get? How far are you going to get? Nowhere. I'm giving you the stuff you have to do if you want to do this business, not optional. Okay, next, we're pre-screening them. You'll notice on the left who is actually going to be doing this work. Step one, your VA is going to be doing most of that work. You, however, are going to direct your yellow letter campaign. There's nothing for your VAs to really do in your yellow letter campaign. You're going to tell Christy how many you want to mail and to whom, and then she's going to get the list for you or put you in touch with this company, and then she's going to get the letters ready, and she's going to mail them to you, and then you're going to drop them in the mail. That's it. And then, when the leads start coming in, of course, you better not do that unless Pat Lai is ready to take the calls. You got to pre-screen them. So how did we learn how to pre-screen them? We take the property information sheet. If it says yes on owner financing, we pull out the script that says yes on owner financing. If it says yes on lease purchase, we pull that one out. If it says yes, I'll sell for what I owe, we pull that one out. And then we call. And then we read the script, and we determine whether we want to go see the house based on the answers. I also furnish you scripts if you don't like the answers. If they want high terms, I gave you a script to call them, to ask them, to explain to them that you can probably work with them, but you got to find the buyer before you will buy the property. If they say they want all cash, I gave you a script to counter that. So all of that's right in the book. You just have to start. Your job, and this is you, is call on those scripts until I get you a VA to do it for you. Number 3, construct and present offers. The truth is, the seller is making you offers based on providing you answers to questions that you ask in the scripts. What are you asking for the price? What do you want down? What do you want per month? How long of a term? The seller has just made you an offer. Now, you simply accept their offer, like we just got through doing, counter their offer, or deny their offer. Everybody got it? You want it all in one place? There it is. That's your recap so far. Does anything up there look complicated? Is there anything up there you can't do or have done? All right, so far you've only got 2 companies to outsource to, and both of them are requiring a very small investment to operate for you. Actually 3 if you're going to mail yellow letters. Then we go to the next step, which is follow-up. We're on the phone, we like what we hear, we make the appointment. That's your job, not your VA's. Your job until you replace yourself, and you may do that with a VA or with somebody on your team, but you're going to have to spend some time training them if you do. You're not going to use our VAs until, in fact, your job is to get the contract signed until you replace yourself with somebody that's going to go to the house and do it. When you do that, that becomes their job. It's either going to be a lease option, a purchase, or an option. Then, of course, now you've got to decide, is this one I want to close myself to protect it, like several of them that we've discussed. In fact, those last few, even on that $500,000 house, I want to close that puppy because it's nothing down, and I have absolutely no apprehensions whatsoever that I'm going to get $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 within the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I want to close it to protect it. That's my choice. If that is your choice, will that affect the way you write that contract in the follow-up? Will it affect the conversation you have with the seller? The answer is yes. If I know I'm going to close it, there needs to be no conversation about I'm going to go put a tenant buyer in here, and if I find somebody I like and let you approve it and we'll stick them in your house, blah, 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 blah. If I'm going to close it, sign here and tell me when you want to close. The less conversation you have about what you intend to do with it, the better. And in fact, none would be preferable. Remember, the more you talk, the more questions you generate, and the more answers you got to give, which generates more questions. If I'm going to close it. If I'm going to close it, all the seller needs to know is when and where. And we're done. How do I know I'm going to close it? Because the math tells me I should. And I get out to the house and the neighborhood tells me I want this beautiful home and I don't want anything going wrong. And I'm willing to take the risk of promising that I'm going to make a payment 3 months from now or whatever. I want to close it. If I'm not going to close it, however, then I must make that clear to the seller that that is my intent. I must use the appropriate agreements to verify that. I must, in a lease option agreement, use that new paragraph that I put in there to replace number 3. And I must have a clear understanding that I'm not doing anything unless I find a buyer. That will affect what I put in my contracts. Instead of having a 30-day close on a purchase and sale agreement, I'll have a 90-day close on the same agreement. Seller's aware I'm not closing until I find buyer. On a lease purchase agreement, I will use that big paragraph I created instead of one where I intend to take control and start making the payments at a fixed date. And these are your decisions, not your VA's. And now, once you get an agreement signed, if you are going to close it, then you send it over to the attorney and get title check done. If you're not going to close it, then there's no reason to send it to the attorney because you don't know for sure you have a deal yet, do you? So now we go find buyer we like, then we set it up to close, then we bring attorney in, prepares the documents to close with a buyer, simultaneously contacts the seller, lets them know, hey, Ron asked me to get involved, a few more pieces of paper I need for you to sign, and is there anything else you need from me? And make sure that the seller understands what they have done and verifies it and signs any more disclosures, including the CYA letter. All right? So, I get the attorney involved based on the current situation at hand. Next. You guys getting this? All right. Selling. Okay. We must put out pointer signs. I didn't put you or VA up there because I don't expect either one of them to do this. You're just going to have to find somebody that'll put out signs for you and make an arrangement with them to do it. And if not, then of course you can put you up there. But ads online, your VA can do that. Email to your buyers list. Your VA can do that. Once you've created one, if this is your first deal, you will start creating that simultaneously with selling your first house. Now, Jay likes you to create the buyers list first, then sell the house. I disagree. When I'm building my buyers list, I want to have a house to sell at the same time. Either way will work. Now, you may choose to email to your realtors and say, I got this nice house I can sell on terms, bring me your buyers, and here's how I'll pay you. You rent that list from any realtor, they'll get it for you. Then you can't email it, the association will mail it for you. And then if you want, you can put it in the MLS. Remember, you can't put it in the MLS unless you get permission from the seller. That's a paragraph. You have my permission to put the property in the MLS. There's no big deal, there's no agreement, there's nothing that has to be created, there's no fancy form. You have my permission to put it in the MLS. Or put it in the agreement itself. Either way. Of course, you must tell the seller, I'm not putting it in there and tying it up. I'm just putting it in there so that the realtors can get at it. And of course, I'm willing to share commission if they bring a buyer. And then you start pre-screening these prospects. I'm going to drive them to my IVR, which means I need to get an IVR set up, doesn't it? Also means I need to get a website set up, because my IVR sends them the URL to my website. My VA sends it. My IVR doesn't send it. My VA sends it. And there's all of the pictures of the houses so they can go find the properties and get the facts on them. My VA must remove the calls from my IVR. My VA then puts them in my database if they pass my sniff test and alerts you with the people with the most money. And then the VA can call the ones with the money, or you can elect to do that, and you probably will in the beginning, and either get an application filled out if the buyer is willing to do it right then and there, or get a little information from them and send them to the house and then get the application filled out. Both ways work. Send them to the house, tell them how to get in, follow up after they've gone and see if they like it, and then get some information on the credit app, and you're ready for the next step. If they like it, you find out what they got to work with, what much down and how much per month. And at that point, if you like what you see so far, you set a meeting and then ask Paul Ritter to send you a package, or you can order the package first and then set the meeting. I really don't care which. Me, I want to get the meeting going as soon as possible, because that's where I'm going to get their commitment money. The good news is they're not really going anywhere, so hopefully I'm not going to lose them in the process, but I still want to get the commitment money as soon as possible. And I'm going to tell you, the more money they got, the more I'm going to break these rules. Because if somebody calls, they got a great big wad of money, you know, I know, everything's going to stop till we get our hands on that money. Don't we know this? Because that money's in the wrong account, isn't it? There needs to be a transfer here, and the quicker the better. And until I get a commitment and a check, I'm not sure that's going to take place, and I'm always wondering, are they going to walk off with my money? So I can promise you, somebody calls you with 30, 40, 50 grand, you're going to get personally involved and get on the telephone and do whatever the heck it takes, including meeting them at the house, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you are. And then dragging them back or getting an agreement signed right there. Whatever you're going to do, you got to get done without begging. All right. Send to Paul Ritter. VA does that. Get an answer back. Set up the meeting. And then at the meeting, see if you can get the monthly payment up. Approach them with the down payment assistance program. See if you can get any more down payment, and see if they got anything on trade. Checklist is in your book. You already know you want them before they come to the meeting. You are now confirming it face to face. At the meeting, you will also get a deposit. A check is okay, and you're either going to get a deposit and a receipt agreement signed, or if you choose, a purchase and sale agreement signed at the meeting. By the way, don't let them come to the meeting without telling them, I'm going to need a deposit. Bring your checkbook. And then if they come to the meeting without a checkbook, as far as I'm concerned, they just flunked the doofus test. Do you really want to work with somebody who can't even follow that simple instruction? Because I can assure you, if they didn't bring their checkbook to the meeting, it's because there's no money in it. And all of their crappy excuses why they forgot it won't work with me. And in fact, if they walk in and they tell me I didn't bring my checkbook, well, let's set this meeting for a later date, because without your checkbook, there's no meeting. I want a check. I want the checklist done in the book. I want a meeting of the minds. And that's where, I make it real clear what the late penalty is and collect my closing time and all the stuff that's on that checklist. Okay, I got that done. I set the closing for them right then and there, and then my VA sends the paperwork to the attorney, or I do it myself. The reality is, if you've come that far, you're probably going to just send it yourself by email to the attorney and be done with it. That's why I put you up there. And say, hey, I got one. Here's my sales price. Here's the down. I've collected blank. The payment is blank. It starts blank. Of course, they'll already know that because you called them during the meeting and set the time for the actual closing with the buyers sitting there. Now the attorney prepares the docs, you review the docs, and you're cleared for takeoff, and then whether you attend the closing or not is up to you. In the beginning, I know you will attend them all. That's okay. Probably need the experience anyway. Besides, if you attend the closing, now you can come home with a check from the attorney. I have buyer's funds go into attorney's escrow account, and my check comes from the attorney. Make sure your attorney's okay with that. All right, now let's talk about the decisions that you have to make as a business owner in this business. Now, this is an egregious list. It's long, or not. These are the major decisions. Decision number one, and first you have to decide who's going to do all these required tasks, which is why I listed them on the attached sheets. However, what I listed, not necessarily what you're going to do. You have to decide who's going to take my calls, who's going to make my calls, who's going to send letters, who's going to call buyers, who's going to do each one of these things. That will take you a little time. Not difficult, since I've already got all the vendors lined up for you. But they, actually won't take you a little time if you just follow the simple lead. Get Pat Live, get VA, you're ready to go. Okay? All right, what sellers are worth calling? That's your decision. And worth visiting. That's not a VA decision, that's your decision. What to offer them when I do visit them? They told you what they wanted. I'm sure whatever you offer them is not going to be much different than what they wanted, but certainly some difference. That's your decision. Now, how will I locate the buyers? How do we locate buyers? We run ads online and we put out signs. Who's going to do it? Where am I going to get the signs? How many signs? Make a decision. Christy will make the signs. How many comes out of your mouth? Who's going to do it? You're going to have to figure out locally. And if you can't come up with an answer, that leaves whom? You. You. And now, which one of these buyers will I accept? That's your decision. I make that decision every single time. If I'm going to have people working with me, they most certainly will know who I'm going to decide on before I decide, but I still want that last say-so. Until you job it out to the point and put somebody in place to where you don't need to make that decision anymore. Right now, I'm making it. In the past, I did not make it when I had a whole crew doing this. Now, if it's not on this list, you should constantly be asking yourself, should you be doing it? And of course, what is the answer almost always going to be? It's almost always going to be no. So every day that goes by, you are going to constantly focus on getting to the point to where this is almost all you have to do. Now, this is not all you have to do, but this is the big stuff. There's a bunch of little stuff in there. You have to keep an eye on these vendors. You have to monitor your progress. You have to make sure the leads are coming in, both sides, selling and buying. And you have to make sure the money's coming into your bank account and that the bills get paid. But that is not time consuming. What's time consuming is everything after the letters VA. All of that stuff will destroy your ability to actually make money. Get it out of your life, start making decisions, and watch your revenue increase. What you've learned here in the last couple of days works. It's not pie in the sky. You've seen real deals from real people from all over the country. You've heard real sellers. These are going to be turned into real dollars and real long-term income streams. What you've seen is a handful of them brought in by a handful of people in a short period of time. Now put yourself back home, generating 10 or 15 leads a week, which is 1/3 of the total we even have here, and look at the mess we made with the small amount of leads we have. And we never did reach more than 30 of them in 2 days. All the deals that Lynette set up here and did for you were done in this room in a short window, in a non-friendly environment because of the time constraints. And if we can do that here and make this mess, why can't you do it when you get back home? The answer is you can. So I would encourage you to get yourself a mentor, not because I sell them, because you need them badly, because they're the difference between success and failure, because if you don't, you got nobody holding you accountable, pushing you forward, making you do the things you need to do and sometimes are uncomfortable to do, and you've got nobody actually on your team you can talk to day in and day out when the bad days come. Will the bad days come? Oh, yes, they will. The whole goal is to have way more good days than bad days. And let me give you a hint. The more money you make, the less bad days you have. You got the tools. You got the help if you want it. I hope you got the motivation. Now go home and do the implementation. Thank you for coming.